Hey guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? Please like, share, subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you get anything from my work, a connected dot, a mind blown moment, an epiphany, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work. All the links are at the bottom of the description. And I know from messaging people, and I do apologize, there are some people I have to get back to. Don't worry, I'm going to. I got one person's email, I think under my mouse pad now. I have someone's email that I have to get back to, so don't worry. But people do send me messages. They show me the books that they bought, that I've recommended, that they're really enjoying. So I just want to put that out there. I'm here to help you explore new avenues of thinking, new books, things to ponder, just thinking outside of the one book paradigm. Because reading fiction is fun, but reading things that could possibly spark higher consciousness is the goal. And again, I'm not here to change necessarily your thinking. If you are stuck or that's just the plane of thinking you want, that's fine. I know I get a lot of comments, which I'm happy, and thank you for commenting, because I'd like to see all perspectives. I might not get back to everybody's comment right away, but at least try to like them. Everybody is entitled as human to have your perception. I may not agree with your perception, but you're entitled to have that, and don't get upset. That's yours to have. And if you hold it in your heart with all the love and compassion that you have, I'm hoping you have, then understand that's okay. And that's only needs to be okay with you, no one else. And I say that to myself all the time. I think very differently from a whole spectrum of people. I'm not asking people to think like me. That wouldn't be possible. But I just want people to have open minds. It's very hard for somebody, and this next comment goes to the people that are already very well read and knowledgeable in the esoteric and Gnostic works. Understand that there's so many people now waking up and understanding that that one book that they held on to for dear life is something that they need to start slowly kind of giving in and opening up their minds. So we have to, I'm trying to build a community for people who are trying to have an open mind. If you're advanced, you're probably way more advanced than me. I just like reading. I read a lot of books. I just got a whole ton today from Radu Cinemar. But I want everybody to understand that we need to be pillars for people to have open thoughts. So I love your comments. Keep bringing your comments, because this is going to help other people see different perspectives. And I know that I get a lot of traffic. It might not be subscribers. It might be people just curious. We need to get the seeds, sprinkle seeds. And I can't just do that by myself. I need all of you, all of your help. So please continue the comments. I'm going to try very hard trying to get a job, because I don't have income, and I'm trying to get my artwork compiled in pictures so I can make a store so that I can sell my creations and maybe not have to go to work or get a part-time job somewhere. I don't know. Trying to figure it out. It's a little bit of annoyance on my end, because it kind of takes me away from interacting with everybody. I don't mean to not interact. It's just the nature of the beast and this matrix. So I was going to pull a wasp bait out today, but wants me to read the Message of Aquaria because of the chapters. And then I might do a spiritual soul growth video right after this. We'll see how awake I am, talking about what I feel is going on in the paradigm right now. So, the law of growth. Quote, seek out the way. Seek it by study of the laws of being, the laws of nature, the laws of supernatural, and seek it by making the profound obedience of the soul to dim star that burns within, end quote. Light on the path, Collins. To understand the causes underlying the many questions which are pressing upon all thinkers for solution today, we must recognize the motive power back of the evolution of both our individual lives and the races, as well as the planet upon which we dwell. All manifested creation is produced as a result of vibratory differentiation of eternal motion and its resultant force. I speak about this all the time. Spirit and matter are but convenient terms used to express degrees of retardation of absolute motion, which in turn is the expression of divine will. Without motion and its resulting force, the universe would be a dead, cold, solid, and immovable cinder, upon which no life could exist. The power of the sun and wind, the waves of the sea, the waterfall of stream and electricity are but various expressions of divine will going forth into manifestation. As long as there is motion, which is vibration or life, we cannot get away from God, for it is in this God that, quote, we live and move and have our being, end quote. One reason why Saturn is spoken of as the regent of the earth is that the force sent out by that cosmic center of force is stability and inertia. It is therefore ruler insofar as without stability, motion would have nothing on which to act. Saturn is also called the adversary because his force of inertia is forever opposed to motion, and it is that impassive shore against which the sea of humanity is forever beating it restless activity until the equilibrium between the two is obtained. Perfect balance or equilibrium is the rest that remaineth for the people of God. Stillness and apathy, as well as strife and inharmony, result in death, but equilibrated motion is eternal life. As the children grows in body, mind, and soul in response to this law, which expresses in every atom of its being as growth, expansion, and unfoldment, so it is with the planet upon which we dwell. Today, mankind is awakening to a realization that we are living in a new and transitional age in which changes are taking place so rapidly that we must become more thoroughly acquainted with new aspects of many of the forces of the universe with which we once thought ourselves familiar, but which daily surprise us with new expressions. Yet this is only the same surprise we feel when we meet one whom we had known as a child only a few years ago, but who now must be treated as a man. The explanation is that the race and the planet have grown up to their young manhood and have entered in earnest upon their life expression. Just as a variation or special form of the eternal motion, which produces our individual lives, also determines our vibratory place, decides the possibilities of our attainments, and marks out the path of our evolutionary destiny, so with the earth. It too is traveling its appointed path, unfolding and manifesting the various stages of its evolutionary cycle and taking its true place in the universe in obedience to the same law. It is the same force, whether pushing a planet or solar system onward to fulfillment of its destiny, or acting within the heart of a tiny seed, causing it to expand and bursting asunder its confining husk or shell and gradually unfold into the type of plant its destiny has ordained. The reason we are not astonished and awed by the wonderful transformation of an acorn into an oak is that we have grown familiar with the miracle, but because we know that the invisible pattern of the oak lies embedded within the acorn, awaiting only for its unfoldment and embodiment in matter to manifest the tree. It is none the less a miracle. So familiar are we with this phenomenon that we forget the according to the same law, the ideal or potentiality within the seed of a world or a humanity or an individual soul must likewise pass through all its various phases of unfoldment and ultimately manifest the ideal which the divine will has implanted within it. The process followed is the same as that of the planet, assimilating the elements needed by each individual from the environment in which it finds itself and building those elements into pattern provided by its destiny. Once we awaken to the method by which the ideal manifests through the law of growth, we will realize that we have not discovered a new force in nature or harnessed a new energy as we advance, but that whatever force is contacted, it indicates that the seed is taking a new step in its growth, for the completion of which it must utilize a higher aspect or expression of the one life. The man who thinks he has discovered a new force has merely unfolded within himself a new phase of consciousness, by which he recognizes and vibrates to a similar force within nature and himself. And like the seed, at every unfoldment of the God consciousness within him, he enters a new field of force in nature to which his body, the physical body, and his consciousness have responded ere it was possible for him to take the step. For instance, until recently, aeroplanes, the wireless apparatus, radium, and so on were impossible, not because the law of aviation and radiant energy did not exist, but because man's consciousness had not reached a point where it could contact, recognize, and understand those laws. He had not unfolded into the realm of consciousness. Similarly, at present, he is not able to understand how to utilize the dynospheric force and thus draw power from the aeroplanes and other engines directly from the air without use of fuel, or how to use it to heal his disease and satisfy all his needs by correlating it with the powers which he will someday awaken within himself. Just as nature manifests all her marvels by utilizing the forces already within her, but this too will be grasped and understood in a comparatively short time. The coming new age into which science is now entering has been called by some the magnetic age, and already by charging them with magnetism, Dr. Ross has been able to preserve without ice for over 3 years fruits, vegetables, and meats, which remain as full of life force and as fresh as the day they were prepared. The magnetic age will as far surpass the achievements of the present electrical age as the later has surpassed the age of steam. But the magnetic age in its turn will be superseded by some more wonderful dynospheric age. Man and nature must unfold together in manifesting divine will. Pause. If we now understand what the UAPs really being unleashed into the consciousness of people, understanding what the government has done with reconstructing UFOs, then we'll understand what reverse technology that they're using is magnetism, hovering all those things are magnetism that are being used in aircraft today. We are just not allowed to know so much just yet. And there's magnetic trains, mag labs down underneath that people use, yet we are not allowed to know about these things just yet. Just a few instances. If the Earth were merely an inert mass thrown off from the sun or another planet and projected only by its initial velocity, it would have slowed down and ceased manifestation of its forces long ere this. But the fact that it is constantly unfolding new expressions of force and manifesting new powers, the effect of more rapid vibrations shows that is not an inert mass blindly following so-called mechanical laws, but it is living entirely gradually unfolding its inner ideal according to the law of growth, just as the inner ideal present within the acorn unfolds into the oak. For the most powerful microscope can find no trace of a pattern in the acorn. The difference is similar to that between a projectile fired from a cannon, which continually and rapidly decreases in velocity, and an express train that picks up speed as the result of an increased application of power at the will of the engineer, that it may conform to the schedule or destiny set for it. The present age is truly called a speed age, because the Earth is picking up speed and events are rushing toward us and flying past like the scenery view from a speeding train. And that is very true. And another pause here. I noticed in just human analyzing that a lot of people are really being aware that time is really sped up. Like you don't know where your day went. Even if you feel like it's going and dragging, it's still going a lot quicker than you expect. There's something to that. Once understand that the source of power is within and is gradually unfolding our possibilities according to the law of growth, and we can begin to work consciously with the law. We will not strive to conquer nature's forces only from without, but will realize the really to know and master a force, we must unfold the consciousness of it within ourselves, for we cannot conceive of a thing of which the consciousness has not been unfolded within us, any more than an undeveloped mind can understand a complicated scientific instrument or a process, even though it's presented to it and carefully explained. To grow, we must drink in the divine as the seed drinks in its nourishment from the elements, realizing that the divine consciousness contains all the forces, all the ideas, inventions, etc., necessary for the advancement of the race in all ages, and that these will be unfolded as fast as man is ready to correlate with them. Those most attuned to each phase or idea will grasp and respond to it first. One who is accustomed to vibrate to the mechanical expression of a force or an idea would be the first to bring it forth and as advanced mechanism, while the scientist, musician, or painter would express the same idea or force, each in his own field. Only thus can we work in unison with the great law to bring about the manifestation of the ideal or real self within us and the real Sabbath for the race. While we remain unenlightened, we are the victims of a great currents of force, swept this way and that by the swirling currents of adverse and inharmonious forces which man's opposition to divine will and his perversion of divine love have brought forth. In fact, unenlightened men today is quite as helpless in the desire and mental worlds as was primitive man in the physical world during the early ages of the race, when the conflicts of the elements were of such devastating and awe-inspiring character. For today, man is meeting in the astral and mental worlds the same problems which he faced in the physical world in the early days. There was a kind of faith which man must obtain, a living faith in the certainty of the working of the great law, which will carry him through every experience and make him the ruler of his destiny. This faith is the result of an inward correlation with the mystic forces of the universe, an inward realization that he is one with those forces, that his whole life is but a manifestation of them. Hence, nothing in the universe is apart from him, nor is he apart from them. Manifested God, good, is the divine outpouring from the absolute, eternally going forth into creative activity and returning to its source. According to a cyclical law, cannot ever project that word properly. Hence, the result of the mandate, let there be light, was not the creation of a new world so much as it was the result of an activity of divine love, reaching out into and through all chaotic conditions, that the living light might penetrate into and transmute and evolve the materials thrown off unperfected and unredeemed from a previous world system, yet containing the seed of a future world, materials which were waiting in the darkness for the light of their new day to dawn. In the same way, the seed lies in the darkness of the earth, where it is subjected to the disintegrating force necessary for its transmutation, and this awaits the quickening ray, which shall start its evolution. God did not say, let us make a new earth for men to dwell in and rule, but the cyclic motion of the ever outgoing divine will and love sent forth a quickening ray into the world seed dropped by a previous world system, which seed contained all the various substances and forces which the previous humanity in all its various phases was unable perfectly to correlate with. That is so true. For the faculties and powers necessary to master such conditions were not yet evolved in a man as whole. That is very true. This is the secret of the forces back of present day conditions. We look around us and note man's marvelous advance in science and invention, how he conquers the air, harnesses the oceans, and subdues the mountains, and we are inclined to say, behold, how wise and powerful is man. But all this advance is merely the natural result of the cyclical push given to all evolution by the outgoing cycle of manifestation through the great law of growth. The cyclic urge to a higher and more perfect manifestation of divine will. In other words, man cannot make practical his new discoveries until the evolution of the planet has produced the necessary conditions, and the discoverer has evolved the analogous forces within himself. Hence, the motive power back of all growth and evolution is one life, which proceeds from divine will to bring forth through divine love, ever unfolding within us and in all creations higher and higher stages towards ultimate perfection. When man awakens to this truth and understands that he has not evolved unaided all the advances which today is so rapidly unfolding, he will begin to have faith that the power of the one life, as a ray of the divine, is working within him to unfold and bring up to perfection the seeds of his divinity. Only his refusal to open his heart to the stream of quickening life force and his refusal to work with it can keep him back from the mastery of his powers. For it is only through his will to correlate with the one life that he can keep pace with the possibilities in himself and the planet and become conscious co-worker with God. Pause. Time out. This one paragraph is absolutely beautiful. When you go in and start understanding what you are as a soul, I know what I made up of a bunch of different fractals, a whole spectrum of things. One of them being an archangel. I got that verification, and tomorrow I'm going to talk to my medium, to my spirit guides, because I have ascended masters coming in. I have a lot of different guides. I do too many, and they're all yelling at each other, like, let me talk, let me talk. And my higher self is like, whoa. But do the work. I'm not alone. I'm not talking from me ego space. I'm not here to make anybody feel bad because you don't know what you are. Let me tell you something. I believe most human, if you're human, okay, not a hybrid, that yes, there's star seeds. And I want to preface this really quick. You do not need to know. It's not that important unless your higher self needs you to know what race you were, because honestly, you were all of them. The good, the bad, the ugly. Sorry to say that. I believe that. You don't need to respond to that. You don't need to feel, oh, well, no, I'm from the Pleiades. I'm Arcturian. I'm the Mantid. I'm a Draco. I'm a this, I'm a that. Listen, you're human right now. It's great that I had this conversation with a friend today, a childhood friend who is not awake as much as most of us, but she's aware. And she's like, well, I never felt like this. I don't feel like I'm home. This is not my home. I'm like, because you're much more than what you think you are. This is just an in-between. You're human, you're here, you volunteered, you're holding frequency, you're doing so much. That comes from somewhere. When you can connect inside your being and start realizing how divine you are, whether it be a Rishi, a divine master, an ascended master, a Daihan Kohan, an archangel, an angel, any of the above, it doesn't necessarily matter. Know that you're from that collective. You are from source. You don't have to give it a title. It helps people understand at what vibratory frequency you are rapidly vibrating at so that they understand, okay, they know what they're talking about, or they might understand how hard your role will be in this current circumstance. I don't take pride or pleasure speaking what I am into, but I'm manifesting it into existence because I'm trying to embody it myself. Having the awareness of what I am is a great responsibility, not to be taken lightly. And that should be every one of you feeling very similar. Tooting your own horn. Well, I'm from the Pleiades. I should have brought down my angel wings. Or, whatever you're saying, I'm not here to make anybody feel jealous or envious. Please don't, because you are just as beautiful and just as needed right now. Whether you understand what you are or not, go within, get your validations. Go within. That last paragraph is very powerful because you have to know with what's inside of your heart. You have to love yourself. You have to do the inner work in order to find out what you are on a soul level. And you're multiple things. You're not just one thing. You have different fractals that make you up. You become individualized when you're in this avatar and you have your personality, your character, your idiosyncrasies, your uniqueness, your talents, and all of that's a whole crossbreed of things that make you special and you unique. And what is the evil trying to do? Create through you. Because they know what you are and they know how powerful you are. Stop giving your power away. Anywho, I just wanted to bring that out because that's going in my spiritual soul advice video. But I feel like that last paragraph is monumentous. Start understanding what you are and stop doubting yourself. I get a lot of the older crowd that I happen to be in a lot of groups, and not necessarily spiritual people that have abilities. They kind of refuse that they understand they have them, but they doubt that they have them. They doubt themselves. There's a lot of self-doubt going on right now. Stop doubting yourself. I stopped doubting myself a long time ago. Sometimes the ego part of my brain needs to have validation because some of the things that I believe are so far out of the realm of like normal people thoughts and even above the ether sometimes that I think I'm going crazy, and I don't want to have to feel like that. But spirit does in time validate me. You just have to be open and aware of what those symbols and signs are, and everybody gets them differently. Everybody's abilities are different. But we're all here and we're all needed. And know that, please know that. At present, man too often seeks to use the powers of God for his own selfish ends. We're in a world like that right now, without regard to the ideals toward which all evolution is advancing. One phase of teaching says, kill out desire. Another holds up desire as the motive power by which all alone man can advance, claiming that whatever man desires he shall have. Others limit desire to one set of emotions and functions, which they elect to call evil. And much family discord, sorrow, suffering, and even sin result. Thus, the average student is confused and knows not which way to turn. The truth is, the human desire is but a negative manifestation of divine will and has its seat or focus in the astral world. Since we shall never cultivate the negative aspect of anything, instead of allowing ourselves to negatively to be ruled by desire, we should carefully discriminate between the objects of our desire and then positively will that which we have chosen as best for us. The astral world contains all the unfulfilled desires of humanity, as well as those souls who have passed away from the physical life, but who are still seeking to gratify those desires on earth. All those forces of desire flow out aimlessly over humanity like clouds of exhaust steam, ever seeking expression through man and sweeping him first this way and then that, expending their energy with no constructive object in view. An erroneous idea of certain modern teachings is that man, undeveloped as he is today, is omnipotent, and that by the mere exercise of his will, the control of his breath and life forces, he can obtain oneness with the divine will or enter cosmic consciousness. But the esoteric teaching is that only by correlating with the currents of the one life through meditation and heart devotion can the life forces of man's body become attuned to their parent source and allow the one life to flow through him in perfect harmony. In other words, it's not by merely willing to breathe in a certain way that the higher consciousness is induced, but through proper meditation and correlation, the breath will automatically flow the rhythm of the one life, and thus unite us to the ideal upon which we are meditating. But woe to him who thinks to master any force, even those manifesting in his own body, for love alone, without working in harmony with divine will and love. And that's very true. There's so much I could say about the last paragraph. I had to pause to even think and consider, but we're going to keep reading on. Just know you need to shield and protect your energy, your thoughts, all the time. The race is now passing through a transitional state in which one subrace, fifth, is overlapping the next, sixth. A night between 2-day periods. For just as we find no hard and fast lines of demarcation between the forces of nature, so with races, day and night and the seasons of the year overlap and blend the one into the other. The colors of the rainbow merge into each other, and the last note of the musical octave becomes the first note of a new octave. Law of one. So in the greater cycles of races and sub-races, there is a long period in which the forces, especially operative in the fifth sub-race, must either find their perfection, fulfill their highest good, and be garnered into the storehouse of a race, or be swept away and disintegrated into their original elements, to come forth again when the new humanity is far enough evolved and unfolded to grasp and deal with that which is failed to perfect in the past. Why I keep saying this is Atlantis 2.0. Nothing is lost, either in the personal life or in the life of the race or the planet. In each incarnation, we either master the conditions we meet and learn their lessons, in which case the experience gained is stored up as vibratory power in the higher self, or their present forms of those problems will have proved too hard for us, are disintegrated another manifestation of force, and await the soul at its next incarnation, when the same tendencies and problems must be faced and victory gained. The same law operates with every race and subrace, and the planet itself, for every planet is a reincarnation of a previous planet. Meldeck, Mars, and other systems. Every race of a previous race, and every subrace a reincarnation of a subrace of a previous great race. The storms and catalysms which occur at the end of each subrace and race are the result of the forces of disintegration and correspond to the changes of disintegration which take place in man's physical body at the end of its life cycle and later on in the astral mental bodies. Both the planet and the race have been passing through a minor night period in Pralaya. All that has been given to man to understand, use, and rule, that he may become a conscious co-worker with God for the good of all, but which its selfishness, unbrotherliness, and inhumanity has refusal to work with the divine will, has perverted and abused, much now be gathered up in a mighty harvest, the tares and the wheat together. In fact, the period of overlapping may be likened to a mill of the gods in which the harvest is tested, and all but the golden grain is driven out. As the voice of the silent says, the worthless husk, it drives from out the golden grain, the refuse from the flour. But the husks and refuse will, after they disintegration, form the materials and forces which fertilize the crop of new conditions in which the humanity of new day period must now sow its seeds. Every soul who has awakened to a realization of the law of the one life has within him the key which will not only unlock all doors, but which will solve all the mysteries and show him how safely to ride the storms of this period of transition, is God's ambassador on earth. Hi, everyone. That's you too. For he understands that the conditions he fearlessly faces, the great law will give him the strength to conquer. How can we help nature and work on with her, correlate with the mighty stream of divine will and love that is rejuvenating the planet and race and preparing them for a new and greater period of manifestation? Divine will is the active, centrifugal, masculine aspect, as divine love is the passive, centripetal, or feminine aspect of the manifesting Godhead expressing according to the law of growth. While desire, which holds sway in the lower realms, may be likened to the exhaust steam of an engine. But just as the efficient engineer utilizes the exhaust steam in a secondary cylinder to add to the power of the whole, so when desire is conquered, controlled, and directed by purified will, it becomes an auxiliary cylinder to the engine which is bearing us total and toward the goal of our destiny. Out of negative desire to be kind and loving, we must evolve a will to be so. Out of a desire to know and understand, we must will to out of a desire to work in harmony with the law of growth. We must will to work with it, as Officius Levi truly says, quote, to will well, to will long, to will always, but never to lust after anything. Such is the secret of power. The Magnus thinks and wills. He loves nothing with desire. He rejects nothing in rage, end quote. The secret doctrine tells us, quote, the higher mind directs the will, the lower turns it into selfish desire, end quote. Divine will and divine love unite in expression through the law of growth. Bring into action the force of the divine one life, the Christ force, the motive power of the universe, the power back of all evolution. Once we correlate with it by willing to let the Christ force manifest in us as definite determination to conquer, and we will have entered the great stream of divine creative force. We'll have attached our individual card to the express train that is carrying humanity and the planet on to their destination. If we go through life with desire instead of will for motive power, spirituality, we are drifting aimlessly with the tide, and there is no more hopeless person than one who merely desires to be good, desires to be liberal, to be happy, to be thought well of, yet who makes no definite effort of will to obtain his ideal. Since the dynamospheric force is the servant of the purified trained will, no one can hope to utilize it either in himself or in the world who is controlled by desire. Many come into touch with these teachings because of desire to gain all that is possible without previous effort on their part, because they desire to advance without the effort to correlate with the positive force of will, perhaps thinking that the desired development will soak into them like a shower of rain on a thirsty field, and with no special effort on their part to understand and utilize their higher forces. Their wills are dormant, and the motive power of their lives is but the exhaust stream of desire. They are like the dogs which by the very onward rush of an automobile are impelled to run alongside and beside it for a time, imagining that they can keep pace with it. Naturally, such persons run here and there with no fixed purpose and no will to obtain, and they are often astonished to see others who have will behind them push past them and press on toward their goal. These teachings are the result of positive willing to enlighten and inspire humanity, not merely on the part of those agents who started out to accomplish their tasks through a special avenue of force, but on the part of those great teachers who through will have taken their places at the head of the great stream of evolution, which ordains that humanity shall have avenues through which the law of growth may be taught it, with as little personal bias as possible, and with will and love co-equal. Therefore, the great whirlwind of divine will, which sweeps over mankind at the close of a certain cycle, have gathered together an atom personality here and an atom there, as many as were willing to be lifted up out of their old conceptions and be swept out into the great stream of unselfish service for humanity, with nothing to hold them together but divine love. With these there may be gathered some who are like chaff, who have no momentum, no will, but those soon drop out, for they are blown hither and thither by every passing breeze in the lower levels of desire. But when the time of hill climbing comes, they will fall away long before the attainment of that which the will of the teacher has ordained, and will drop back contently into their old habits of thought and life, to be picked up and swirled around by the next current of force that passes by. To correlate with the one life and become conscious workers with the divine, we must transmute desire into will and be dominated by the will to grow. Awaken then to the necessity of willing and taking definite steps to correlate with the Christ consciousness of the one life, knowing that all life is an expression of eternal motion. Better is he who, with an open mind, wills to do and makes a mistake than he who stands still or drifts along on the exhaust stream of desire. For if he is earnestly pressing forward, the imperfect or mistaken attainment of today will be left behind without a sigh tomorrow. For the advances he has made will give him a fuller understanding and a great appreciation of what is best for his spiritual unfoldment, and he will see his goal draw closer and closer as he draws closer and closer to the perfect manifestation of divine will and love. Make life forceful with will, standing back at everything we do or think, but at the same time draw close and let the mother love pervade and bring forth the Christ in us, so that all who meet us will recognize that while we are positive and forceful, we're also loving. That, my friends, whew, a lot to consider and a lot of personal work to do on many's behalf. The birth of the new age. Quote, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then shall he send his angels and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the utmost part of the earth to the utmost part of heaven. And quote St. Mark. In the early ages, the masculine and feminine principles were separated into independent men and women. The dawn of the days, symbolically recorded in the first chapters of Genesis. And while the two principles were expressing in the one organism, there was a period in a human evolution corresponding to the transitional period through which humanity is passing today. But conditions were so different then that we, of separate and corporeal organism, can scarcely realize or even imagine how beings of an incorporeal and ethereal substance, half astral and half physical, could think, act, and function. For it must be remembered that the humanity of that time had not reached the lowest arc of its cycle of descent into matter. We have explained in the voice of Isis, this misty forms being more and more dense by the gradual absorption of a new element, earth, until the second race, being also sexless, evolved out of itself at its beginning, the third androgyny race by the analogous, but already more complicated process. Only toward the middle of the third race, Lemurian, did solid bones develop, the sexes separate, the body become clothed with coats of skin, and take on human form as we know it today. Proving Ashiana's theory is correct, if you follow her work. But I correlate with this and resonate with it profoundly. The dense materialization began out the middle of the third race and was completed by the middle of the fourth, Atlantean race, by which time, owing to the density of the physical conditions in which they must ultimately manifest, the separation of the sexes was completed. The separation was inevitable, for it was necessary that both expressions, active and passive, positive and negative, manifest fully and completely and learned independently, yet together, the lessons of the lowest and densest phase of the cycle of manifestation. This could not be accomplished all at once, for physical conditions were then so crude, dense, and hard that only by the complete dominance of the positive and masculine element could the organism survive, and this permitted little free expression of the feminine element. It must be borne in mind, however, that when speaking of the masculine and feminine elements expressing through one organism, we must not picture man and woman as known today. Neither must we construct an anatomical anomaly in which the two sets of physical organs are equally developed, for we are contemplating that which, while it had been projected into the physical plane and had not yet taken on physical expression, it was expressing an ethereal and astral matter and was tending toward the density of the physical embodiment. But the masculine and feminine functions had not then focalized themselves into bodily organs. They only existed in potentiality, or at most in rudimentary form. It was then that the masculine and feminine principles, thus projected into earth conditions, began to manifest. The masculine functions are the result of the outpouring and embodiment of the masculine principle of will, intellect, courage, and the power to fructify and express in form. The feminine functions are the result of the outpouring of embodiment of the feminine principle of love, compassion, intuition, and the desire to bring forth in form. The masculine principle being an expression of divine father aspect of the Godhead, manifests as a great, overwhelming, and self-sacrificing desire to project and fructify, even at the expense of itself, while the feminine principle being an expression of the divine mother aspect of the Godhead, manifests as an overwhelming desire, yearning, and eagerness to bring forth, cherish, and preserve, even at the expense of its own substance. The chief manifestation of the masculine principle is creativeness. The chief manifestation of the feminine principle is motherhood, both expressed in perfect purity. If this short summary of the creative principles and manifestation is understood and borne in mind, many of the difficulties arising from the contradictory teachings of others as to sex will be avoided and solved. Although the feminine principle is focused in and expressed largely through the female sex, it does not do so exclusively, for there are many men who express more of the motherhood, the yearning, love, desire to bring forth and cherish something more ethereal and spiritual than has as yet manifested in the physical expression of life. Then do some women, for there are many women who are not true to their birthright, who are not seeking to bring forth and cherish their higher spiritual realizations in their lives. Conversely, many women express more of the masculine qualities than do some men. Both men and women today are waking up to the realization of the possibility of manifesting greater and more perfect expressions of themselves, the possibility of bringing forth their higher ideals to manifest in their outer lives. And just as the unquenchable desire of a feminine principle of love and compassion to bring forth in freedom and perfection result in the separation of the sexes in those early days, so today the same unquenchable longing must result in more definite separation, independence, and freedom for women. But now, instead of being directed downward into matter, the great urge of the mother force is projected upward to bring forth higher ideals for the race. The separation of the sexes is recorded in the Bible in the allegory of Eve, being created from a rib taken from Adam, side during his sleep. This marks a real fall of man, or the descent into matter, but it was not a fall or descent due to sin. It was brought about by the same great principle of divine love and wisdom. The voice of the deity sent forth the word that was spoken and sent through all the spheres. The projection is always creative, but only through the loving mother force can the creation be brought forth. This fall was not a sin, nor due to the use of the sex functions, for man was distinctly told to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. The sin was that man, after being given the power to create at will, in learning to use his new-founded function, used it largely to gratify the desires of the animal body in which he was manifesting upon earth, instead of using it only under the guidance of the divine, and also, and alas, in sin and sorrow, were the fruits of the tree of life plucked and eaten, hence the resulting curses from which mankind had suffered since are of his own creating. It was said that it was women who tempted man, but this does not mean that woman was seducing man, selfishly desirous that he should participate in sinful pleasures. It means that women tempted man in the sense that the great mother force, the love and yearning to bring forth, was then for the first time forced to separate forms. Before that period, all the love and the desire to bring forth was hidden within the androgynous being, hence was indefinite, like the spiritual longings we feel but scarce understand. They seem vague and far away, yet we all recognize them as efforts of the one reality, the higher self, to express and bring forth in us. And it will be just as the great test or temptation to us, when in the fullness of time we find our spiritual body a definite reality to our waking consciousness, and our power to make dreams come true, also a reality to our senses, to decide whether we will use our spiritualized creative power to bring forth in his image, or whether we will again go astray and again debase our godlike power to minister to the selfish desires of the personality. A rib is an important part of the dense physical framework of the man's body, and this expression tells us in one graphic word that woman is not a separate being, newly created and subordinate to men, but is a naturally differentiation of the one spiritual being, which expresses through the two co-equal sexes, an integral part of the very framework of his being. For without the ribs, man's form would not be possible. It is much as though the moisture of the air, as it condensed into a cloud, might separate into two parts, and yet each part be an expression of the one center of force. The deep sleep which fell upon Adam, or the advice humanity of the early ethereal race, was the sleep of a race night period, or pralaya, during which all activities cease or rest in a deep sleep, to come forth at the dawning of a new day period in a more perfect manifestation. It is, of course, understood that Adam of the allegory was not one man or Eve one woman. The literal meaning of Adam is red earth. Hence, Adam stands for the first earthly race of the red ray, red coming from the first, the becoming first, because it is the lowest, most material vibration of the solar spectrum. The previous races being too superphysical to be classed as earthly. But with the first glimpse of the mysterious orange planet back of the moon, the orange ray had begun to mingle with the red ray, and had its influence as a force of the new age overlapped those of the former. On the descending arc, which enters dense physical conditions as a feminine attributes were separated from the masculine, it might be said that women was born from man. But today, humanity as a whole has passed the lowest and densest point and is on upward arc into more ethereal and spiritual conditions, has indeed already reached the point on a level with the corresponding to the point on the descending arc at which the sexes separate. Hence, according to the laws of cycles and correspondence, there must be conditions which correspond to those of the former cycle, but in a higher form. Therefore, we may now expect a more spiritual separation or birth of the sexes, preparatory to a subsequent unification, when the conditions of earth are so changed that mankind as a whole manifests in ethereal conditions instead of physical. Thus, once more will women be born from men, but now upon the mental plane. Adam, or the real or divine self, will once more give up a rib or a part of the framework of his mental body, and out of it will be fashioned once more a helpmate for him. In other words, during the past ages of the world, it has been man who has built up the mental conceptions and ideals that have influenced, moved, and controlled the business and social fabric of society, while women, as her place in the intellectual and spiritual background, hidden within the body of man, so to speak, although always an important upholder of the structure of a man-made society. But in this coming woman's age, which is now dawning, she will take her place as a co-equal part of the framework of human society, no longer merely a rib in a man's world, but having ribs and a complete independent structure of her own, which shall henceforth work as a co-equal with man in bringing forth the new conditions of humanity. It is not good for man to be alone, for he has proved his inability while working alone and dominating to use the feminine principle either within himself or in the race for the best good of all humankind. Today there was once more sent out from the lodges of masters the thought received by them from the Elohim, the assembled gods of all the worlds and systems. It is not good for men to be alone. Once more there is fresh and greater outpouring upon humanity of the mother force from the jar of the water bearer, Aquarius, who falls on his knees to pour out the water which shall enlarge and deepen the channel of its manifestation in mankind, as does the fresh net in its springtime. The feminine aspect of creation is sweeping the earth. Even in the most materialistic quarters, we find women waking up to the thought that they have something more to do in the affairs of the world than before. This is, in reality, is the result of a current of force deliberately sent forth into the world from on high, and only as it is able really to manifest, and not only women of the land wake up to their great potentialities, but also the womanhood of the race, or the feminine qualities in both men and women, with love, intuition, sympathy, and compassion that can bring forth even in man, can humanity as a whole receive its new birth. There is hovering over the race a desire to bring forth something greater, new conditions of physical and spiritual life, new conceptions of brotherhood, new realizations of oneness of all flesh. No longer do men ask, am I my brother's keeper? They are beginning to find out that all mankind are brothers and are each other's keepers. For that which hurts one hurts all. That which benefits one benefits all. As was clearly shown in recent world war, the old-fashioned conception was but the separating of the mother love and the masculine intellect, from the conception that each man must be a law unto himself and create for himself material wealth and comforts and strive selfishly to enjoy them alone. All this being conceived and born of the new great outpouring of the divine mother force. Even those women who are seeking political changes and political recognition, although sometimes in misguided ways, are nevertheless obeying the feminine life wave of the period. But to those who can hear and understand, there comes a higher message, the message of the Great Mother, namely, that there must soon be born the coming manifestation of the Christ, the Avatar. Like all Christ, he must be born not of one woman through the great and gate of physical birth, for humanity has passed beyond the point where this is necessary. But he must be born from the outpourings of feminine force from both men and women, thus setting the example and becoming the pattern for the type of birth which will ultimately be reached by humanity as a whole. That is, it can only be through the deep, abiding love, sympathy, understanding, and intuition, together with the will, faith, and eagerness to prepare a place in the heart and give of the life, of the devotion, of the heart and mind, that such a divine outpouring can be focused and made manifest in an embodiment on earth. This preparation must not be to save ourselves or from any selfish desire that we may recognize and place in higher position, where we can exult over or dominate our fellow man, but must be made because of an overwhelming and unselfish desire that new light, comfort, and spiritual help may be given humanity, that new conditions may manifest, that a force of divine love great enough to uplift poor, suffering humanity may manifest on earth. This is the expression of the real mother love of the woman's age. And while women must be its force and bear the greater part of the preparation, yet men must also share in this great work and lend his positive qualities to help establish it upon earth. For only of such combined qualities can a mighty matrix of divine womb, of spiritual love force be created, into which the one divine can descend and materialize upon earth, even as he has already descended and manifested in the higher realms and in the hearts of his faithful followers. Which by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is happening right now in society. This means far more than the mere bringing into Earth's atmosphere of a great teacher, for many a great teacher has come before and given his message only to be stoned or crucified, and his message either misinterpreted or ignored. All the outpourings of divine love and wisdom which the great teachers of previous ages have sent to this dark star have been greatly limited and modified by the dense material conditions which then obtained. But it cannot be too strongly emphasized that the earth and her inhabitants are passing out of her most dense conditions of limitation, are dying to the old and being swept and garnished. In fact, are today's passing through the terrible throes of the birth of a new cycle of manifestation. Hence, every earnest heart who longs for better conditions of any and every kind has a great work to do, namely to see to it that the united forces of men and women's virgin love nature be expressed and given forth, that the coming divine one shall be indeed born of women, the divine motherhood of the race, which also includes the love nature of men. In the text which heads this chapter, the great teacher or avatar is called the Son of Man, who is born of a virgin, meaning pure, or of the feminine aspect of humanity, and hence will be able to manifest the Christ power in the proportion that man has been able to conceive of and prepare for it, and will therefore become the flower and fruit of humanity. Each avatar comes as a new outpouring of the universal cosmic Christ force, and in him is expressed all of the highest conceptions of the race, thought together with a foreshadowing of that which it can obtain. And like Mary of old, the women of today are crying, how can I bring forth this new age, seeing I know not a man, that is without a man's cooperation? But the answer is the same today as of old. The Holy Ghost shall come upon thee, and the power of the highest shall overshadow thee. Therefore also that holy thing which shall be born of thee shall be called the Son of God. Hence, an avatar is always the sun, or more correctly, the sun, like the shining ball that we see in the sky, of man. He has come not in physical clouds, but in the mist of glory, which he can be penetrated only by the eye of spiritual discernment. His teachings will be so far the full comprehension of the masses of the immediate time that humanity of all the following cycles will be finding new truths hidden in the letter of his words, while even the surface of obvious meaning will be comforting, helpful, and inspiring to the masses. The great teacher will not come to any one school of philosophy, sect, society, order, or church, but to mankind, for he must be born of the combined mother love and will of humanity. Hence, only those who can give of their love, will, devotion, and intuition will know him when he comes, for they will be affinitized to the divine force which he manifests, and will know him as a mother knows her child. It is not a matter of the race, society, or church to which we belong, for if we have manifested this mother force and are pouring it forth, we are one of his own. But there will be, indeed, there is now taking place a selection, a gathering together from the four winds, not according to the organization to which we belong, but according to how much of the true mother force, how much real love and devotion we are given to make this divine birth possible. He shall shine from the east, even into the west, like rising sun. By the east is meant not a geographical point, but a point in the racial heart of humanity, the point of conception or the birthplace of the Buddhic or Christ consciousness. By the west, it meant the place of reaping, the complete understanding of all that the cycle is bringing forth. Every eye shall behold him, but only the eye of spirit shall recognize him. We are especially warned against those who proclaim themselves to be the coming teacher or who permit others to proclaim them. Take heed that no man deceiveth you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders. Believe it not. Remember, an avatar is not a mortal born of physical woman, but a phenomenal manifestation of a divine being. To those who are ready, even if but a few, to those whose hearts are open, who can conceive even vaguely of the great truth, comes this message. According to your heart's desire, so shall it be. We speak to you as to the mothers of the race, be ye men or women. It is to Mother Force that we appeal. Awaken you mothers of Israel. Let it not be said as of old that the voice of Rachel is heard in the land mourning for her children and cannot be comforted, for they are not. Determine that the children of your love and eager desire shall be brought forth, and they will be. The birth pangs, both you and the earth are now suffering. But if you understand and know that the time is at hand for your birth of the new age and its great teacher, you will hold fast and patiently bear your sorrows and tribulations, knowing you are bearing them for the world. This is not a time to weep, not even to mourn. It is a time to focus all your attention on the great truth that humanity shall bring forth a child and shall call his name Emmanuel, God with us, and he shall dwell with us forever. Amen. That concludes that part. But I also want to just end on this. My eye makeup looks a little wonky. I tried doing like matching my dress to my eye color. We are birthing, all of us, that's doing the inner work, that is going within, that is comprehending at any level, doesn't matter if you're just starting or if you are seasoned. We are all here in a vibratory state, trying to raise the love, trying to raise the compassion frequency, trying to grasp the concept that Christ consciousness does not hold a religion. It does not hold a specific entity. It's all of us that hold this spark of God within, God of the all supreme prime creator. We're holding that frequency within us. And when we do the work and we start doing a lot of that inner work, healing wounds, healing ancient wounds, we have stuff that we carry from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime that we sometimes don't know why we feel a certain way, why we have a feeling, an instinct that we can't put a finger on. We don't know why we're like that, but it's because it comes from a past life, a past incarnation. And because of the veil, we forget. The beautiful thing about reincarnation is that we do need the veil. If we came in knowing it all, what is the purpose? When we can start remembering, we're not remembering every one of our lifetimes, because goodness sakes, it would take me a lifetime just to review my other lives. It's so many and vast. But giving me the key snapshots, the key, just to understand in some sort of small way what my soul was in other lives, helps me further my cause in moving forward in this life. I'm not going to receive every conversation, and we're not doing that right now. It isn't coming for a very long time. Do I really want to know about every one of my lives? No. Some of them were insignificant. Some of them are resting lives, meaning Either I just went through hell in a handbasket, chose to come down to take a rest and have an easy life, or I'm preparing for a hard life for the next incarnational round. We all have these things, guys. You can believe that or not. Collectively, we are moving this consciousness forward. We are expanding our awareness. We are not doubting people like me and probably most of you anymore. People don't see me as batshit crazy anymore for my crazy out thinking ideas because they're abstract. More people are starting to, you know, what you're saying has some substance to it. People might still be like, oh, cool. But at least I see them, and I get it all the time. People I used to work with a few years ago come back to me and go, wow, Allison, I'm sorry, you were right. I don't want to be that person that says, well, I knew. I want other people to come to their own awareness of what I'm saying. And that sometimes takes years. And I know it's frustrating, and it's frustrating for so many of you who do the same thing with other people. No, you're not alone. You're definitely not alone. But we can't just go back at them with, I told you so, because that would be a prick thing to do. It's like, thank you, and I acknowledge that you are at another point of your spiritual development than I was. I already flew over there and you were still over here. And that's okay, because at least they came to a realization. But we're bringing in this Christ consciousness. We're headed through the neutral path of the God way, source, prime creator. If you go neutral and you're standing and understanding both aspects of yourself, you're bringing in that Christ consciousness. And again, there's no bounds to it. It's not religious. Yeshua came down in just one being. Christ is in office. It's held, and it says it in the Urantia book, Christ Michael. So please explain to me, why aren't we calling Archangel Michael Christ? Christ is in office held by different entities throughout the cosmos. They get ordained, they come down, and they do the will of the Father and the Mother. Christ Michael, right? Yeshua, Christ. But you could claim Buddha is also Christ. And you can pick and pluck all other walking physical entities that came in embodiment. You know what they were really teaching? The law of one. The universal laws. If you take the law of one and combine it with the Kabbalion, there's everything you need to know. And studying it, reading those books, you start baselining your reality. You start understanding how things move. It's all physics and math. I know I'm ranting, and it's a long video. I know. Sending each and every one of you love, light, protection, and shielding. We need to shield. We need to protect our energy. We can't give our energy away at free will. We have to start owning our boundaries. We have to understand that there is a huge spike in negative forces right now from the astral level, coming and trying to dim the light of those who shine the brightest. And that is many of us. I can't tell you how many people I've witnessed, I call them the gremlins, try to mess up people's live streams so that their words can't come out. So their thoughts, what they have pointed that they wanted to get across to humanity or whoever's listening to them, can't get out. This happens all the time on We Not Me. Go check the show that I help put on. That happens all the time. And I'm sitting there with my bowl, saging, projecting, and trying to stop whatever is happening energetically. I've shown intangible evidence what my abilities are to other people. It's up to them to believe me or not. People think, again, I'm batshit crazy, but that's okay. I don't care. I do me regardless. Do you regardless. I hope all of you have a really fantastic weekend. Please be safe, be seen. Keep your eyes and ears open for that hurricane that is slowly going up the East Coast. Supposedly, we'll see what happens. The weather in Indiana, where I am, which is the trough that will bounce that hurricane hopefully away, it's cold, been rainy and stormy the last 3 days, and gloomy. So I hope all the gloominess, which we need the rain, knocks that little sucker out to the sea. So let's hope so. Please don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for everybody who is supporting me, who is helping me. I really appreciate all of you. It's a team effort. I'm going to steal Jason Q's. It's we, not me. It is. It's really all of us. I'm just using the time that I am allowed in life to share the books that I find really freaking mind-blowing with all of you in hopes that it helps you. Knowing you're not alone in your thinking or even a perception. I hope that I bring something to the table that can help. And that's my purpose here for the moment. So guys, thank you. And I'll see you guys on the next one.